Hello, all you hardcores. We're joined by Anthony. First of all, before we start, click on the link pinned in the comments. Human nutrients. Go and have a look at that. All right. How are we doing, Ant?
Hi, Corky. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, mate. What are you up to?
I'm dodging between meetings. As you know, I can't spend too much time with you, but I'm very grateful that you've had me on.
No
Big up the
problem.
Porkster. Big up the Porkster. We got a session today.
Right. What happened to John Coffey and all this going to create chaos and then the new? What happened? Tell me.
He got bladdered, didn't he? Can I offer up a sound bite from a certain Mike Tyson?
Yeah, go on
How dare these guys challenge me with their primitive skills?
then. Mike.
How dare them? They're as good as dead.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. They're saying that Don Charles has had his marching orders already. The word around the campfire. Do you feel that dads in boxing know what they're doing or they don't know what they're doing? What do you think?
Generally speaking, they don't know what they're doing. We've obviously had Enzo Calzaghe, who seemed to know what he was doing, but he was just one, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay. Could I offer Don Charles a translation of what Usyk meant by "don't push the horses"? Well, here's a translation for you, Mr. Charles. What Usyk meant is that he's like our friend in Sheffield, and "don't push the horses" means he's got a horse cock. And what we then did, because you've motivated him to do so, he's gone in the ring, lagged all over your fighter, and then when it was all over, after lifting off his feet, he's gone to the corner and asked you what you thought, what you think about that. That's what happened. It was epic. I have
Do you think
never
that was
seen.
cockiness from Usyk going over to the corner, or do you think it were aimed at Don
No,
Charles?
I'm paraphrasing, but he was a genuine guy. When you see him with Chisora and all the guys, he gives the British fighters their dues. What he didn't like was the disrespect and the utter nonsense that came out of Don Charles and his imbecile son's mouth. And what I can't understand is you've got boxing fans like me, you've got people like you who've been in the boxing game professionally, and we all know what Usyk's skills are, what his strengths are, and where his potential weaknesses are. We could all see it. We also know that for Dubois. So why would a trainer in the lead up to a sequel, a second fight, where both of the fighters have looked at each other, be motivating somebody to absolutely do a number on their fighter? Because let's have it right. One of the things Usyk has as his biggest asset is his cerebral and mental ability in the ring. He could switch, he could do this, he could do that. That is his fighter's weakest attribute because he's perhaps on the spectrum, right? Why would you try then to have some psychology on him? It's not work. Do you know what it reminds me of in a different sport?
Yeah.
Remember when Usain Bolt was obviously running and he was racing against the American Justin Gatlin, and I think it's the 2015 World Championships, and they had Gatlin on the podcast saying he's going to win. Well, Usain Bolt's biggest asset is his mindset because he was so chilled and so relaxed and everything else. He was a championship performer. Why are you motivating saying you're going to beat him? Even if you're running 9-7, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
And I think I'm not surprised he's got his marching orders because I've just listened to Terry and I agree with him. A lot of coaches in England just haven't got it because they haven't come up with a game plan to beat Usyk.
No.
End of story.
Nobody's come close, have they, really?
No, no, no. And let's have it right as well, Mr. Porky. I remember a couple of podcasts, myself and you, was saying, listen, Usyk is that good.
Yeah.
And both of us, well, I'm not being funny. Come on, the people that are listening to this podcast are not casual fans. It's not that hard a read as to what was going to happen. Would you agree with me with that? It's not that
We
hard a
called
read.
it, didn't we, what happened? And people, what we have is people in the industry like Superbean, Sam Jones, and all these YouTubers, Stomping Ground, Puppy Parsons, Cogan Cassius. I mean, Cogan Cassius, I saw him have words with Dave Allen on IFL because Dave gave his opinion. Cogan trying to go into bat for Bricktop Fighters. These people have got to bump into these guys the following week at press conferences and at gyms and in their offices, and they're going to want access. So they all have to go with the same narrative that Bricktop goes with, and that is: do not mention about him quitting off a jab. Do not mention why he pulled out the Parker fight at the 11th hour, and do not mention about how Usyk won every single round last time out. What they did have to mention were Daniel Dubois got the power, and I can see how he wins. And the last thing you lose is your power. They took us down that narrative. And I always say this: once the media start coming out with, well, I can see how Dubois wins. He's durable, he's capable, he's got a puncher's chance. If that's what we're going into against the fight with Usyk, is he's got a puncher's chance. What, like everybody else has had? They're heavyweights, aren't they? They're always going to have a puncher's chance. Then you bet on the other guy, and it was plain as day. And after, they were shell shocked. They were that shell shocked, but they were that shell shocked. They wouldn't even let him face the media. He can't even speak for himself. He's a big stiff dummy. You can't have it
Well,
all
did
your
you?
own way. When you win, you want to do loads of interviews, and when you lose, they all want to go into hiding. Like Amzad Shiraz, we never seen him after Adama's fight, did we? We went missing, didn't he? See what I'm coming from?
Correct.
But they all want to
Yeah,
bask in the glory when they can win. So that for me is a double-edged sword, and I'm not happy with that.
correct. Paul Gill's also in the ring. They had Don Charles come in with obviously John Coffey, and he actually reminded John Coffey to thank the crowd. Don't know. Did you hear that?
Yeah. Oh,
Did you hear?
yeah, yeah, that's
Well,
it. Yeah.
so that tells you that he is, in my opinion, on some kind of spectrum, and everything he does is set up by his camp. So the interruption when Usyk was talking about his late father, saying that he wants his revenge, the shouting about at the press conferences, the disrespect, all of these things, in my opinion, has been instigated by that camp. And what that camp has done is given that kid a humiliating beating, because that was an absolute masterclass. That left hook that lifted him off his feet is one of the quintessential hooks I've ever seen delivered in boxing. It's up there with what Fraser did to Ali, what Fraser did to Bob Foster. Do you remember the Nonito Donaire Darchinian fight
Yeah.
when
Think
Nonito
about
Donaire absolutely drilled Darchinian coming in? What you saw with Usyk is that he hit him with that right hook, and then he pulls back and he makes him miss and hit his right shoulder with Dubois' right hand. And he knows, because he's got the read on Dubois, that his head's coming back to the center line, and he absolutely gave him Ivan the Terrible. And that folded him like a cheap deck chair, that did. That was all she wrote, Button Moon.
what I didn't like at the end when he got up after 10 and just walked back, and normally weren't jelly legged or anything. It just looked like he was exhausted up here, not physical, more mentally. And it also drained it out of him. That's how it looked to me, because if he could get up and walk over like that a second later after the count, well, why couldn't he get up a second earlier? Yeah, I
Yeah, he,
don't get that.
well, here's the problem. Dubois' weaknesses are twofold. Number one, he's not a skilled boxer. He's big, he could take a punch, and he's powerful, but he's not a skilled boxer. He's got a very leaky defense. Right, we could go into it a little bit later, how Usyk put it on him in the first 20 minutes, 20 seconds rather, right? Number one. And number two, because Dubois has a very strange mentality, he can't read and change up mid-fight. He's given a set of instructions like an automaton. you'll see him go out there and execute them. But if it goes differently, he doesn't know what to do. He's like a computer that freezes and then you know restarts and crashes and melts down. You know, it was just oh. I got a good friend who used to be a Tyson Fury fanboy until I had a chat with him. And just before the fight, he said to me, he said, Anthony, would you rate your chances of Dubois? I said, zero, none. He goes, what, absolutely none? I said, absolutely. I'll quote myself. He gets spanked.
Yeah.
And what I saw, Porky, is that in fairness to Dubois, he was given instructions and he did try to carry them out because he was more aggressive in this fight than he was in the first fight, right?
He left himself wide open, didn't he, when he were coming forward, throwing leather?
Yeah, but do you see him in the first 30 seconds of the fight? He took the center of the ring and he started to put it on Dubois, thinking, I said to him, look, mate, you got the wrong boxer, and you should have known it because the boxer in front of you is a slightly different color than the one that you've just KO'd, right? You've got Usyk. And what Usyk did, because he's got the read on him straight away, is he realized that the more aggression, and he stepped back. He's using Dubois' aggression against him, and as soon as you see what he does with his right hand, he sort of circles it, drawing those leads, and he just drew the lead. And the counter jab, the first counter jab he does, he literally ducks under Dubois' guard and gives it to him upwards. And not only did it knock his head back, it stopped him in mid in mid junction, mid
Mid
lunging forward. And you look at the boss face and you could see what the F. And from that moment, I actually texted my friend. I said, "You see how accurate Usyk is?" And that stopped all Dubois' preparation for the fight because he thought he could walk through Usyk. No, you can't, because that jab stung him so well. He was tentative, and this is where I disagree with. We had Bricktop and we also had Chisora was saying, "Oh, he didn't let his hands go. He didn't do." Of course he didn't, because he's getting so effectively countered. If you're in the ring and you're getting effectively countered, you stop throwing and you start hesitating, which then gives the
concentration breaks, doesn't he? Once you keep getting clipped, he keeps trying to reset himself, and then he's getting touched again, or there's a feint, or he's going like this, and he just overwhelms you, doesn't he?
his movement was mesmerizing. The pendulum effect he has, where he jumps in and comes back, he jumps in, he comes back. He's moving with it because he's a southpaw. He's got his right hand circling, and he's just drawing and drawing and drawing your leads, and he's boxing your ears off. It was just clinical. I looked at it and I went, wow, Don Charles got this fighter beat like that, because in my opinion, if it was a more respectful um, build up to the fight, everybody was calm, none of this disrespect, none of Don Charles' ridiculous failed boxer son talking nonsense, roadman nonsense to him. I don't think Usyk would have done that to him, because Usyk already knows he's got the beating of Dubois, and there's several um, press conferences he's done where people have put British fighters in front of him. Who can beat you? Who's a good fighter? Who's that? And you can clearly see he's when it comes to Dubois, he says, "No, you can't beat me." Why would you then piss the guy off that he doesn't even want to shake your hand at the beginning of the fight? I knew he was getting served.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he got cut down like a deck chair, didn't like cheddar cheese, mate. Now the
Oh, it
game
was.
plan. I want to talk about the game plan. Was Don Charles's game plan just to say you're a God fearing man and you're supposed to be a God fearing man, and that wasn't a low blow, and you won an Oscar and all that, and having a go at him that way, and bringing that big galoot George Fox in on the act to disrespect Usyk. I mean, could you imagine Ali or Lennox Lewis having to answer questions like that to some 4-1 journeyman?
Well, here's what I think, Porky. Don Charles has waited a long time to get his flowers, and for whatever reason, the type of person he is,
He
or
got him by default, though, didn't he? He got a world title belt by a fucking email, didn't he?
correct, right? But the fact is, it's his first world champion, and he started getting some flowers. And the feeling I've got is that the amount of attention that he garnered,
Didn't handle it.
he couldn't handle it. You know, he's like, colloquially in Britain, we call it blowing smoke up somebody's rear end, right?
Yeah.
And what has happened is that some people can handle it and treat it with the contempt it deserves. Other people, it goes to their head, and all of a sudden they think they could walk on water. My impression is Don Charles and his son thought, one, they'll sell the fight, and two, they they actually thought that if they can convince their fighter, John Coffey, that he is a superior fighter, he might actually win. That was never on. Look, it's Vasily Lomachenko's father that trained that, right? When you look at all the roadmen he's annihilated in their own backyards at cruiserweight, and then he's come up always as the B-side fighter and annihilated everybody else. I'm not being funny. His CV speaks for itself. What are you doing?
Well,
I would have been, if I was his trainer, I'd put blinkers on Dubois and I'd say to we would have watched the fight back, see, we'd have watched the Chisora fight as well, because Chisora gave him a number of problems, and we would look and have a game plan of what did Chisora do that made Usyk look human? Can we do this?
okay.
Head down, whatever.
Move on to part
Right, would you like me to go on to part two?
two. I'll see you on part two in a minute.
Good man.
Thanks for liking and subscribing and leaving a comment. And don't forget to click on the link that's pinned to the comment section. Human nutrients. Focus Corner, no big sponsor. All right, go on, Booyaka.